7:43 a.m. I was barefoot in the kitchen, halfway through my first sip of coffee, when my phone buzzed with a message that burned through my soul like acid. "We need the house back. You have 30 days to leave." No greeting, no explanation, just a digital eviction notice from my mother-in-law. For a second, I thought it had to be some cruel joke. I stared at the message, heart hammering, lips parting but no sound coming out. Then I screamed, "Callum, get in here, now!" My husband ran in, still half-dressed for work, eyes wide. "What's wrong?" I shoved the phone at him. "Your mother says we have 30 days to move out." His face drained of color. He read the message once, twice, then his jaw set like concrete. She can't be serious. Oh, she was dead serious. Amelia Miller had hated me from the second Callum introduced us. I was too independent, too assertive, not the Stepford wife she'd envisioned for her golden boy. But what she'd just done wasn't disapproval. It was a full-on declaration of war. "She's out of her mind," Callum muttered. "We own this house." But a sinking feeling gripped me. What if we didn't? What if the beautiful 3-bedroom home they'd gifted us as a wedding present wasn't really ours? And what if this text message was just the beginning of something much, much worse? 4 years earlier, Callum's parents had surprised us with the ultimate wedding gift, a charming 3-bedroom house they'd inherited from Amelia's aunt. It was stunning. Hardwood floors, crown molding, a big backyard. Amelia handed over the keys with a smile that never reached her eyes. "Family takes care of family," she'd said. And we believed her. To clarify things, Callum was the only son of Amelia's sister, and Amelia adopted him as a child after his mum passed away. So we renovated the kitchen, repainted every room, turned the guest bedroom into a cozy office. We lived, laughed, built memories. But now, her message made every past conversation replay in my head with new, sinister meaning. Every visit she made, she walked the house like an inspector. Her fingers skimmed counters, her eyes scanned improvements. "You really invested in this place," she once said with a smirk. "Too nice for newlyweds, don't you think?" We thought she was being snide, but she was taking inventory. Callum rubbed his face. "We have the deed, don't we?" I stared at him. "Do we? Or do we just think we do?" Because if we didn't own this house outright, Amelia could be doing more than evicting us. She could be stealing back something we never truly had. And something told me, this wasn't about the house. This was about control, about power, and I was going to find out exactly what she was hiding, no matter what it took. But the house was just the beginning. What she did next involved $750,000 and the FBI. The moment Callum and I sat down to process Amelia's absurd eviction text, my phone rang again. Caller ID, Amelia Miller. Callum stared at it, jaw tight. "Put it on speaker." I tapped accept. "Hello, sweetheart," she cooed with sugar-dripping malice. "I'm sure you got my message. Richard and I have made a decision." Callum's voice was flat. "You gave us this house." "Well, circumstances change," she replied coolly. "Richard's investments didn't go as planned. We need to liquidate a few assets." My fists clenched. "So you want to sell the home you gave your son?" "It's not really yours, is it, Rosie?" she said, her voice sharpening. "You really should read the fine print before you call something yours. Ownership is a complicated thing." That laugh. That smug, polished, gleeful little laugh. "We have the deed," I snapped. "Your names aren't on it. Oh, sweetheart, you might want to double-check that paperwork. Things aren't always what they seem." She hung up. Silence filled the kitchen. Callum looked at me, pale. "You don't think they did something with the paperwork?" I was already moving. "I'm a paralegal," I said. "If they screwed with the deed, I'll find out. And if they forged anything, God help them." This wasn't just a greedy old woman grasping at her son's success. This was the opening move of a well-planned con, and I was going to dismantle every piece of it. I called in sick, tossed on jeans and a blazer, and dragged Callum with me to the Multnomah County Courthouse. Callum was still clinging to hope. Maybe they're bluffing. Maybe there's been some misunderstanding. I didn't respond. I was already scanning the property records database like my life depended on it. Because it kind of did. After 2 hours and 3 trips between offices, I held the answer in my hands. The official deed, stamped and notarized. Amelia and Richard had legally transferred the home to us on June 15th, 4 years ago, the day we said I do. "We're the legal owners," I whispered, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Callum sagged with relief. But then, something didn't add up. There were entries on the title file that shouldn't be there. Multiple lender inquiries, credit checks, and verification pings over the past 12 months. "Why would banks be checking on our property?" Callum asked. My stomach twisted. "Because someone's trying to borrow against it." 3 days. That's how long it took me to chase down every data point. I called every title company I'd ever worked with. I followed paper trails. I leaned on favors. I hunted like a bloodhound. And finally, I found it. 3 successful mortgage applications, totaling $750,000, filed by Amelia and Richard, claiming the deed transfer had been invalidated by a family dispute. And the signatures? Mine. Callum's. Forged. The notary seals? Fake. The settlement agreement? Completely fabricated. I stared at the files in stunned silence. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't desperation. This was organized mortgage fraud. They had committed 3 felonies and used our names to do it. Callum nearly dropped his coffee when I told him. "This could put them in prison." "Good," I whispered, "because now they're not just trying to steal our home. They stole our identities." And I was just getting started. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Instead, I called Jenny Walsh, my boss and the attorney I'd been working under for 3 years. "Jenny," I said, barely holding it together, "my in-laws forged documents and took out $750,000 in loans against our house. I need help. Now." 10 minutes later, I was in her office, a trembling stack of forged mortgage applications in my lap. Jenny flipped through the pages in silence, her mouth slowly tightening with every line she read. When she finally looked up, her expression was pure steel. "Rosie, your in-laws are screwed." I blinked. "That's a legal term?" She slid a forged settlement agreement across the table. "Fake document, fake notary, they forged your signature. That's identity theft, document forgery, mortgage fraud, and conspiracy. And they did it 3 times. That's federal." "Can they go to prison?" "Oh yeah," Jenny said. "The kind where you learn to crochet with murderers." Despite everything, I laughed. A sharp, hysterical bark. Then Jenny dropped the real bomb. "They didn't just steal money. They made it look like you and Callum gave them permission. Which means the feds will investigate you, too." My stomach dropped. "Wait, we're the victims. And they'll believe that. But until they verify everything, you and Callum are part of the case." My head spun. They hadn't just broken the law. They'd thrown us in front of a legal freight train and hoped we'd get flattened. Jenny leaned forward, her eyes burning with fire. "Rosie, you have a choice. You can walk away and let it slide, or we can burn them to the damn ground." I didn't hesitate. "They tried to ruin our lives. Let's torch everything they built." I gave Callum 1 night to process it. 1 night to grieve the parents he thought he knew. Then I told him, "We're confronting them, tomorrow, at our house. I want them to see what happens when you mess with someone who knows the law." He looked torn. "Are you sure? We could just send them the deed and threaten legal action." "No, they need to face what they did. Face me." But as I drove home that night, a doubt crept in like cold fog. What if I was wrong? What if there was some twisted explanation? Maybe they were manipulated. Maybe Amelia had a breakdown. Maybe... I shook it off. No, I had the documents, the dates, the faked stamps, the fraudulent signatures. This wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated theft by people who smiled in our faces and stole behind our backs. I picked up the phone and dialed Amelia. She answered with that icy tone. "Rosie, we need to talk, all 4 of us, tomorrow night, our place, 7 sharp." "I don't think that's necessary." "Oh, but it is, because I spent the last 3 days at the courthouse and title offices. I found your creative writing, the settlement agreement, the fake notary, the forged signatures." Silence. Then a brittle voice. You don't understand what you're doing." "I understand exactly what I'm doing. I'm giving you 1 chance to come clean, or I go to the feds." There was a pause, then she whispered, "We'll be there." I hung up, set down my phone, and smiled. Tomorrow the war would begin, and I'd be holding all the weapons. But here's a heads up. What they said at that meeting changed everything. Amelia and Richard showed up at exactly 7 p.m. Not late, not early. That told me everything. They were bracing for battle. Amelia wore a conservative cardigan and fake concern. Richard looked like a man dragged to his own funeral. I greeted them with a bright smile. Thanks for coming. Sit. Let's clear the air. The dining table was already set, not with plates, but with evidence. Legal documents, photocopies, printouts, a neon yellow folder marked Fraud Exhibit A. Amelia's eyes darted across the papers. What is this? Proof, I said, of what you did, of what you stole. I slid the first document forward, a mortgage application showing a forged version of my signature. Then another, a fake settlement agreement that claimed we'd willingly given the house back. Richard paled. Amelia's lips thinned into a line of defiance. Callum sat silent next to me, hands clenched under the table. Amelia spoke first. This is ridiculous. You can't prove we submitted these. Actually, I can, I said sweetly, tapping my phone. I recorded our last phone call, the one where you told Callum, and I quote, "Things aren't always what they seem." You also mentioned the documents you claimed we should double-check. Amelia's jaw twitched. You recorded me? I'm a paralegal. Recording you was the nicest thing I did. Richard stood. You have no right. Oh, sit down, I snapped. I haven't even shown you the fake notary seal yet. The one from a non-existent notary. That's federal fraud, by the way. Amelia reached across the table, grabbing my wrist with her long red nails. Her voice dropped to a hiss. You little bitch, you're destroying this family over a house. I didn't flinch. Assault. Add it to the list. Callum stood. Mom, Dad, that's enough. Amelia rounded on him. She's not your family, Callum. She's a parasite who's turning you against us. Callum's voice was calm but ice cold. You forged our signatures. You stole money using our names. You lied for a year while smiling in our faces. Richard snapped. We were trying to save our retirement. At our expense, I growled. You gambled your future and tried to steal ours. Then I leaned in close and whispered, and the worst part is, you thought I wouldn't fight back. Amelia looked stunned, but I wasn't done with them. Not even close. I want you to listen very carefully, I said, holding their gaze like a blade to the throat. You are going to contact every lender you defrauded and confess. You're going to admit that you forged the documents. You're going to repay every dollar of the $750,000 you stole. Richard sputtered. That's impossible. We don't have the money. Then figure it out, I said. Because if you don't, this entire file goes to the FBI. Tomorrow morning. Amelia looked like she'd swallowed acid. You'd ruin your own family? You already did that, I said flatly. Callum stepped forward, voice cracking. You broke the law, Mom. You betrayed us, she sneered. You think she won't turn on you next? You'll see what she really is when she's done burning us to the ground. I stood and stared her down. You're finally right about something. I am going to burn you to the ground, and I'll do it legally, publicly, and with a smile on my face. Amelia's face twisted in fury. We gave you that house, I laughed, and then you tried to steal it back with felonies. That gift came with a price tag of your reputation, your finances, and your freedom. Callum had heard enough. Get out, he said, quiet, final. Callum, you can't mean that. Get out! They left without another word. I watched them drive off, swallowed in the darkness. And then I realized something chilling. They had nothing left to lose, and people with nothing to lose are the most dangerous kind. But I wasn't their only problem anymore. The banks were coming, and the FBI was next. The morning after the showdown, I called the lender listed on the first fake mortgage document. Hi, I'm calling about a property that may have been used as collateral fraudulently. I expected confusion. What I got was panic. The rep's voice turned serious. Ma'am, can you hold one moment? I'm transferring you to our fraud department. 2 minutes later, I was speaking to a man who sounded like he hadn't slept in 72 hours. Miss Miller, if what you're describing is accurate, this is a very serious issue. Can you provide the documents? I have everything. Forged signatures, notary seals, false claims of ownership, all of it. He exhaled hard. Then we have a problem. Because based on your information, this loan and the 2 others linked to the same individuals were approved with fraudulent paperwork. I paused. You mean Amelia and Richard? Yes, and they're now facing full acceleration clauses on all loans. That means immediate repayment. I did some quick math. 3 loans, principal plus penalties. That's over $800,000 due right now. And one more thing, he said. We're legally required to report this kind of fraud to federal authorities. You should expect to be contacted by the FBI shortly." I hung up and stared at my phone. Amelia and Richard weren't just in trouble, they were in federal trouble, and now the wolves were at their door. 24 hours later, Amelia called me. She sounded like a woman who'd been crying for days. "Rosie, the banks, they froze everything. Our accounts, our credit cards. They're demanding repayment. Over $400,000. We don't have that kind of money." "That's unfortunate," I said, ice in my voice. "Maybe you shouldn't have committed fraud." "We're going to lose everything," she sobbed. "Our retirement, our home, everything we've worked for." I didn't say anything. Then she tried the bait. "What if we gave you our house?" I blinked. "Excuse me?" "Our house. It's still in our name. If we transfer it to you, maybe you could drop the charges. Keep it in the family." Everyone walks away. Oh, the irony. They tried to steal my house. Now they were offering theirs to buy silence. "Let me think about it," I said, and hung up. Callum came home to find me staring at the wall, turning it over. "They offered to give us their house," I told him. He sat beside me, stunned. "What are you going to do?" I didn't know. On one hand, taking their home felt like justice. The scales balanced. They'd pay back what they stole and maybe avoid prison. On the other, I'd seen the hate in Amelia's eyes, the venom, the utter lack of remorse. And then I remembered something else. The FBI doesn't care about family drama. They care about felonies. And the banks had already reported everything, so whether I accepted their offer or not, justice was already on the way, and it had a badge. I didn't have to file a complaint with the FBI after all. The mortgage companies did it for me. The call came on a Friday afternoon. Unknown number. Professional tone. "Miss Miller, this is Special Agent Lisa Morrison with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit." My stomach dropped. "We received a report from multiple lenders involving mortgage fraud on your property. We'd like to set up an interview next week. Can you and your husband come in?" I swallowed. "Of course, we didn't know anything until recently. I have all the documents to prove it." "That's what we're hoping. But I should let you know. During our investigation, we'll need access to your financial records, phone logs, and communication with your in-laws." Callum sat silently beside me as I hung up. His knuckles were white. "The FBI," he whispered. "They're really involved now?" "They don't send agents for misunderstandings, Callum. They're coming for your parents." But I was nervous too. What if something looked off in our finances? What if our innocent fight back was twisted into involvement? Amelia and Richard hadn't just burned their own house down. They'd nearly dragged us into the fire with them. I spent the weekend gathering every scrap of evidence, cross-referencing timestamps, highlighting discrepancies. By the time I walked into the FBI office Tuesday morning, I was either going to clear our names or become part of a federal investigation. Agent Morrison didn't waste time. "Let's go over your version of events," she said, flipping open a file. "Start from the beginning. Don't leave anything out." For 2 hours I talked, and she listened, occasionally raising an eyebrow but mostly nodding. When I finished, she looked up. "Well, Miss Miller, this is textbook fraud. Your in-laws are in serious trouble." "And us?" I asked. "So far, you're clean. We'll verify everything, but based on what I've seen, you've done us a favor. You exposed a very ugly crime." A favor. That word hit hard. I wasn't just defending myself, I was helping serve justice, and Amelia and Richard had no idea the storm about to hit them. The FBI moved fast. 2 weeks later it happened. Amelia and Richard were arrested, not quietly, not politely. Right in the driveway of their home, handcuffs, squad cars, neighbors watching from their lawns with jaws dropped. By 6 p.m. their mugshots were all over the news. Local couple arrested in $750,000 mortgage fraud scheme. There they were. The people who once sneered at my independence, who called me ungrateful, who tried to steal our lives. Now looking like every inch the criminals they were. Callum stared at the TV in silence. "I never thought I'd see this," he whispered. I didn't say anything. I knew this was killing him inside, watching his parents get publicly dragged through the mud. But this wasn't a tragedy. It was justice. The criminal case took 8 months to resolve. Patricia and Richard eventually pleaded guilty to avoid prison time, but they received 5 years of probation and had to pay massive fines and restitution. The banks demanded full repayment of the loans. That meant Amelia and Richard had to sell everything: their home, their cars, their investments, even Richard's vintage watch collection. And it still wasn't enough. The community turned on them fast. Friends vanished. Their country club revoked their membership. Their church asked them to stop attending until further notice. Amelia tried to call me one last time. I let it go to voicemail. "I hope you're happy," she said. "You destroyed us." I didn't even flinch. "You did that yourself, Amelia. All I did was stop you." But karma wasn't done with them yet. 6 months after the FBI case wrapped up, I got another unexpected call, this time from Agent Morrison. "Miss Miller, we thought you'd want to know. We've arrested Amelia and Richard again." I nearly dropped my phone. "Again? What for?" "Tax evasion. It turns out they never reported any of the loan funds as income. The IRS has been building a parallel case for months." I covered my mouth. I couldn't tell if I was laughing or choking. "It gets better," Agent Morrison added. "We also found evidence that they were planning to flee the country. Fake passports, offshore account transfers. They were prepping to vanish." That broke me. They'd already lost their reputation, their finances, their standing, and they were still trying to run. If I hadn't exposed them when I did, they might have disappeared with everything, leaving Callum and me to face the legal fallout. Instead, they were facing new charges, more fines, and possible prison time this round. When I told Callum, he just sat there silent. "I don't know who they are anymore," he said. I reached over and squeezed his hand. "You know who you are, and you know who we are." He nodded slowly. "You saved us, Rose. If you hadn't fought back—" "I didn't just fight back," I said. "I finished it." 2 years later, I'm sitting in the same kitchen where this war started. The house is still ours. Fully, legally, irrevocably. We've remodeled the guest room, repainted the walls, ripped out the floor Amelia once complimented too politely. This house is ours now, not just by law but by spirit. Callum and I are planning a nursery. Amelia and Richard, they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment across town. Richard had to come out of retirement to take a part-time job. Amelia volunteers at a charity. Not out of kindness, but because it was court-ordered community service. Their names are now associated with fraud and scandal. They've lost friends, status, even their church community. And I don't feel guilty, not anymore, because I offered them a chance to make it right. I warned them, gave them opportunities. But they chose manipulation, forgery, theft, and I chose to fight smart. It started with one text message. "We need the house back. You have 30 days to leave." That message cost them everything. Because when someone tries to steal your future, your safety, your home, you don't beg. You don't fold. You dig deep. You use your brain, your skills, your anger. You weaponize your pain into precision, and you burn them legally, righteously, and completely. So, do I regret it? Not one bit. They gave us the house, and thanks to their greed, we got to keep ours, and they lost everything. So, what do you think? Did they deserve everything they got, or should I have shown mercy? Let me know in the comments. And if you thought this was wild, wait until you watch the next one on the screen. It's insane. Hit like, then subscribe, and I'll see you there.